So, with that being said, my friends, let's jump in today. We got a fun one today. I'm trying to make sure I'm live. I'm not sure what's going on here. It's the first time going live through here, so I'm trying to make sure this is working. Can't see any comments or anything, but anyway, oh, there we go. We're good. All right, cool. Let's rock and roll. So, guys, today we're going to be talking about like our top 3, top 5 worst flips, customers, all in one, that type of deal. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So I think it's going to be a fun one. And, we're going to kickstart it. And, who wants to go first, me or you, Matt?
I don't know. We both got some great takes. I think. Hey, look, you're leading the podcast, so I'll let you have this one.
I got 5
I got
ready.
a couple in my pocket.
All right, cool. I'll go first.
Okay, I've got at least 3 good ones. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got 3 good ones. Yeah. So the first one that was the worst for me, obviously, was when I got robbed. I'll just throw that out there.
When you got robbed.
When I got robbed, that was probably top of the list. When I went to a random dark neighborhood with my car and got robbed at gunpoint, and just did the wrong stuff all the way through, and here's a lesson I learned. I learned to never ever do that again. I don't think many of you guys know this story. I talk about it. I try to talk about it more, and I made a video a while back on how to not get robbed flipping electronics. As a guide to not letting that happen to you. So first rule that I learned was always meet in a public location with cameras. That's why I meet at Starbucks. A lot of you guys are like, why don't you run around town all day long? Well, when you get a gun pointed at your head, it's a little, it reinforces the fact that you probably should meet somewhere, safe. So I know a lot of you guys, I get ragged on for my scheduled meetup model all day long, but I don't care. So here's how it all happened. I met in a dark area. It was from OfferUp. I remember it specifically. And the guy was just accepting every offer that I made and, without fail. And then, I was like, let's meet at this store. And he was like, I can't get there. He's like, can you meet at this address? It was a random address in a random neighborhood. It wasn't anything like ghetto or anything like that. It was actually a nice neighborhood just at night. And anyway, I get out of the car, pull out my bill of sale stuff, and next thing I know, there's 3 other guys around me. They're taking around my car.
Chris.
Yeah.
Continue that thought. I have to go sell my nephew's dirt bike off Facebook Marketplace. The guy just pulled up to my house.
Go get that money. I'll continue my
guys, story. I'll be back.
So next thing I know, I got 3 guys digging in my pockets, and then they took my money, my car, everything I had, and ran off with it. They took my car, which was wild. But anyway, don't get robbed. That's probably my worst meetup ever. It taught me more about this business than anything else ever. So don't do that. Don't do what I did. Just don't do that. So that's my first one. I'm going to move on to my second one while Matt is selling a dirt bike and making some money. So let me go to my next one here. So my next worst customer, worst flip, worst experience ever. And this one was more embarrassing than anything. And I really want Matt to be here for this one. So he can watch the recording. It's fine. So my second worst customer ever was it was whenever I met a lady at Starbucks who brought in her 4 kids, and I'll just say it, like, a lot of these, most of the kids were not very well taken care of. Let's just put it that way. And she was sitting at the table, and these kids had no manners. They had nothing. Like, nope, she doesn't watch them. It's quite obvious. Like, and these kids were tearing up the Starbucks. Like, they were going behind the counter. They were just going up to random people. And I'm just sitting here trying to buy this phone. and like motioning to this lady like, hey, your kids are everywhere. And she like forgot her iCloud password, so she was trying to reset it, and like it was a whole thing. It was crazy. Like it was more embarrassing than anything. The thing that and I thought honestly I was going to get kicked out of Starbucks because of this. And I thought I was never going to be allowed in again, and it was one of those. It was just so bad. And what happened? We had a barista come up to us as I was trying to buy this phone and get the hell out of here. We had a barista come up to us, and here's what that barista said. That barista was like, hey, you guys need to control your kids. And I was like, no, these are not my kids. Not mine, man. Like, it was so embarrassing. I ended up buying the phone, finally, and then I got out of there as fast as I could because I honestly felt like I was about to get kicked out of the Starbucks because these kids, guys, I kid you not, they were literally like, they were going behind the counter. They were grabbing stuff behind the counter. One of them ended up in the freaking like far back room of the Starbucks, and or like the kitchen area where they actually cook stuff. Like one of them ended up there, and I was just like, dude, this is insane. Like this is wild. And it was just so embarrassing of a meetup and a pickup that I was just like, dude, I never want this to happen again. Like, so that was probably my second worst experience ever picking something up. It was bad, guys. Legit, it was bad. And I do love how Matt is literally like flipping a thing right now during the podcast. I mean, it's not a phone, but it's like the Smart Flip podcast, and he's literally making money on the podcast as we speak. I love that. So I'll keep on moving on through my flips, and then we'll go through Matt's worst ones too, while we're waiting on him. And hopefully he can just watch the replay here. But my next one, guys, this one was good. I didn't actually meet up with this person. This person was just such a bad customer that it was wild, right? So let me mute Matt here real quick. He's got some background noise going on. So my next one, guys, this was during like the holidays. This was during the holidays, like Christmas time and stuff like that. And I was messaging this lady, and we were messaging back and forth, and she had some headphones that she was trying to sell. And they were like some Beats headphones, like not the big ones, but like little tiny ones, like the Beat Minis or something like that. I told her I couldn't pay very much for them. Like I couldn't buy them at all, like because they were worthless basically. They were only selling for like $15 online. She's like, I need $65 for them for my kids' Christmas, and I'm just like, I can't pay that. Like that's not. It's literally not possible for me to pay that amount for this. And she was, and then she went off, like went crazy in the text messages. And she basically went on a whole tangent of like, you are single-handedly ruining my children's Christmas because you're not buying my headphones, basically. And I was just like, dude, what? And she just like kept going, like berating me because I wasn't buying her basically worthless headphones, and just kept telling me that I was ruining her children's Christmas. And I was just like, dude, what in the world? Like, and it was wild. Like, I had to eventually just like block her from messaging me, and it was one of those things. So don't be ruining people's Christmases, guys, because you can't buy something. And then so I'll move on to my other two. So I was meeting up with a guy one time, and it was at a Starbucks as usual because of my previous, robbing experience. And there was a guy who didn't want to meet up with me because there was a police car outside. And like, so this was interesting. And he was like, I don't want to come in. There's a police officer in there. And I'm like, okay, like, what's the problem? Right. And he was like, I don't want to come in. I've had bad dealings with police officers in the past and this, that, and everything else. And I'm just like, dude, what? Like, all right. Okay. And that's kind of how that whole thing went. And anyway, he finally ended up coming inside, and I bought his phone and everything was fine. But the dude was like terrified to come into the Starbucks because of a police officer that was sitting inside. And the whole time he was like jumpy, and I was checking out the phone. I honestly thought the phone was going to be blacklisted and everything because of the way he was acting. It wasn't. But yeah, I mean, that was one of them. That was wild. It wasn't that wild though. Like, it wasn't super crazy, but it was just like one of those things that was just like, okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. And then once Matt gets back, we will move on to his stories. So the last one here that I got, guys, is something I definitely recommend not doing. This was very early on in my career with this thing, or my side hustle, I guess. I drove all the way to a lady's house. It's probably about a 30, 45-minute drive to buy a phone. And I walked into her house, and it shouldn't have done that, number one. Anyway, I found out that her phone was blacklisted. It was iCloud locked. It was not buyable, basically. And like, once I told her this, like, she started begging and pleading and like all sorts of, and it got it got very uncomfortable very fast. And I was just like, I don't want you guys to be put in that type of situation, because that is not ideal at all. Like, you don't want to be put in a situation like this, because it does not feel good. It'll turn you off of the business big time. So like, and she was like grabbing my shirt. She was like, it was like begging and pleading for me to buy her thing. And I was just like, I can't, like, I can do nothing with this phone. I think it was like an iPhone 7 Plus red. This was a couple of years ago. So I tell you guys these stories because I think they're important for you guys to hear. And I want Matt to tell some too, but I want to go over like some of the biggest things that I've learned and over time. And I've gotten a lot of like hate from a lot of other quote unquote like influencers in the phone flipping space and stuff like that because of this. But the reason like I have a lot of my stuff, like the scheduled meetup model and things like this, is because of these experiences. It's because I've had experiences that were very uncomfortable. And I mean, when I got robbed, I thought, like, guys, I literally shit my pants. Like, it was not fun. It was scary as hell. And I say this because I'm giving you guys the experience without the scar, right? Like, I don't want you guys to have to go through the same pain that I went through to learn the quote unquote, I guess, correct way to do this, right? Like, I don't want you guys to feel the pain and the like suffering to get the experience that I had to go through to do it. Like, and I'll be real, like, after I got robbed, guys, like, and after I went through a couple of these experiences, I wanted to like hang up the towel. I wanted to like not do this business anymore because it was there was a lot of things that were super uncomfortable. And it was not fun. And I don't, like I said, I don't want you guys to go through some of these. And that's why I recommend the scheduled meetup model. That's why I recommend negotiating in a certain way. That's why I recommend using a bill of sale. That's why I recommend all of these things. It's because, like, I don't want, something crazy to happen. And that's one reason I tell you guys these stories, is to help you understand and take action on, just being safe, I guess. So recap, my top 5 worst customers. Obviously, number 1 is when I got robbed. So I do want to go over like this. Like I went over it a little bit, but guys, I had a gut feeling like to not go to that neighborhood, and I knew better as well. Like I knew better, and whenever you guys have that gut feeling, I definitely recommend like freaking listen to it. Your intuition is usually spot on. So now here's some things I could have done better. I could have been a lot more strict with that meetup for sure. I could have been like, look, I'm meeting at this gas station or we're not meeting at all, which is the way that I do it now. Like a lot of you guys think that I'm very direct in my approach with things, and I am. And there's a reason for that. I'm so direct that it'll actually turn off the wrong types of people that I don't want to meet. Okay? So, like, if I don't want to meet somebody if I think that they're going to be a problem for me, right? If I think they're going to be a problem for me, I want to avoid that at all costs. And if I can avoid that at all costs, it saves me. It saves me time, it saves me money, and it saves me a lot of extra headache that I didn't need, okay? This is another reason why I don't really drive to people, too. Like, this is why I'm so bent on, like, my way of, like, doing the scheduled meetup model and things like that. I'm literally meeting a guy at Starbucks right after this call to buy a camera. And I got a funny story about that. So this morning, I wonder if I can pull up the audio from the call. Anyway, I had a repeat customer call me this morning. And Matt, you'll enjoy this. I had a repeat customer call me this morning. He's like, hey, Chris, what's up, man? And you know what? I should just pull up the audio for you guys. Well, I don't think I can do it on this one, but maybe I can do it on my phone. Because the guy literally called me. He's like, hey, I've sold you a phone before. I had a great experience. And, I want to sell another device to you. And let me pull it up because this was great. Here we go. So I'm going to pull it up on my phone. I'm going to see. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Matt, let me know if you can hear this.
Hello, this is Chris with Bell Electronics. I can help you.
Can you hear that?
Hey, Chris, how you doing? Hey, I was calling because
hold on, you're muted.
iPhone before.
Oh,
can you hear it?
Yeah, it's a little low.
I have
How's that?
It's better.
It's a Fujifilm camera. It's one of the those models.
Hold on, let me start it over. So this is good.
Hello, this is Chris with Bell Electronics. I can help you.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how you doing? Hey, I was calling because I sold iPhone before, and I had an amazing experience. But I have it's a Fujifilm camera. It's one of the.
So anyway, it goes on a little bit longer than that, but he's like, yeah, I sold an iPhone to you before, and I had an amazing experience. He said that, not me, guys. He said that, like, the customer said that. And then it goes on the conversation. And guys, in this industry, you hear all kinds of weird and crazy stories. It's amazing, honestly. He goes on. He's like, yeah, I bought this camera from my girlfriend, and then I found out she was cheating on me. So now she's not getting it. I'm going to sell it to you. And I was like, I literally just started laughing. Like, and he was like, yeah, it's yours now. And he's like, just give me a price, and I'll bring it up to you at Starbucks. And win. So I already went over my 5, Matt. You'll have to listen to the recording to hear them. But,
oh, man. Well,
yeah,
we got cash, so we're all good.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, no, spread it out, dude. Spread it out so they know it's not fake.
Hey, look, guys.
Oh.
It's about $1,000. I sold my nephew's dirt bike for him on Facebook Marketplace, and I only had to get 1,400 views and talk to 23 people in order to sell it. So, got ghosted by 2 people that said they'd meet me. I gave them my address. They didn't show up. That's great, having 2 people with your address just out there in the world. And then the third guy finally came through. I'm talking about strange stories. I don't know if you could hear it, but was literally starting a dirt bike in the garage. And
is that what that noise was?
Yeah, that was for his son, and he was revving it, and he goosed it too early, and it's like a power band, and so it got out from under him, and he shot 20 feet up my driveway and landed on his side. So in the middle of
you got the money first, right?
I wish. Yeah,
Oh
I was
God.
like, just test it out, make sure that it works. So he's like, oh yeah, I can ride. Just takes off and goes sideways on it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, okay. So, anyways, yeah, I don't sell motorcycles often, guys, but that was awkward. He was like, well, you done wrecked it, so pay the man. So he gave me some cash.
Oh my God. So the son was driving it?
Yeah, he was
That's
probably every
hilarious.
bit of
You
like
done wrecked it, so you better give him the money.
every bit of 14. Oh wait, he's messaging me about the title.
About the tire?
The title.
Oh.
Hold on.
That's funny. But yeah, I went through my my robbing story, and then a couple other stories that were fun. You know, how I ruined a lady's Christmas by not buying her worthless Beats headphones. That was fun. So, another time when I went to Starbucks and a guy didn't want to come in because he was scared of the police.
Oh
That
wow.
was a good one. Like there was
Oh wow.
because Starbucks always has police at them and every night, all the time, drinking coffee and stuff. And then whenever I drove to a lady's house and she had a blacklisted phone and she begged and pleaded and all that stuff for me to buy it, and I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like,
All right, I'll be
then
right
there
back, guys. I'm going to give the owner of this bike that just bought it the title. I'll be right back.
live flipping, my friends. So, yeah, guys. Just to reiterate, the reason we kind of tell these stories, and Matt's going to tell his here in a few minutes, is because we don't. Once again, we want to give you guys the experience without the scars, and if we can do that, it makes your life a lot easier, in my opinion. There's been many times where I didn't listen to mentors, free or paid, and it's come back to bite me big time. Because it's funny. I remember whenever one of these experiences happened, and I messaged David Kosciuszko about it, and he was like, "Well, I told everybody not to do that, right?" And and then like that's all he had to say, like for me to get it right, was like, I said not to do this, and you went and did it anyway, and you learned, right? Like there's been many times where we've seen none of my students, thankfully, at least I don't think, none of my students have been robbed, but I have seen some other people robbed simply because they did not follow what was recommended. Like, a surefire way to get robbed is by getting into somebody else's car to buy something. Like, don't do that. Like, not smart, right?
Yep.
Like, luckily, none of our students have been robbed. Well, I think one was kind of robbed, selling a device, but he ended up like, chasing the guy down and whatever. But
I haven't been robbed, just to let people know.
I mean, just like, well, it's, I don't think you're gonna get robbed of consoles, luckily.
I mean, it's fairly rare. I maybe know of if you're in reselling long enough, you're gonna know of somebody that's probably been robbed, been held up, or been scammed. And if you haven't been scammed, you probably aren't trying hard enough. Let's be dead honest. So one of my stories is first time I went to buy a MacBook, the guy told me it was a 15-inch. Hand to God, it's a 15-inch, and I got so excited about the deal, I just didn't even bother to look. So I overpaid on that MacBook for probably about $300 to $400, and ended up probably losing. Once I sold it for a little more than I bought it for on eBay, but I probably still lost about $200 to $300 on it, and that was a really terrible story. That's just because I wasn't thorough. I should have bought the device. When I bought it, I should have looked at the serial number and double check the serial number and the model number on the bottom underside of the MacBook. So you learn how to not be hasty. I was hasty the first time I bought a PlayStation. I bought a PS4 from a kid, and it was in a gas station parking lot. The dude was probably like 14, and he finessed me. There was a crack in the disk drive right above it, and I thought that everything was good because I didn't even know to look at that because I had never owned a PS4. And And so I was like looking at it, I was like, oh, sweet. I bought it like on the cheap, like $70, $80. I should have known something was up. And these days I probably would, if it were like a different kind of console. But I went too quickly. I probably didn't even look at the HDMI cable. I didn't give it the shake test. And
Mhm.
then when I went home and plugged it in, it was in safe mode. And I was like, what the heck is safe mode? So I had to navigate that. Fortunately, I bought it so cheap, I actually still made profit on that device,
Heck
which
yeah.
is another nature or methodology and approach to this
Yeah.
process that we talk about a
Buy it
ton.
where you can break even. Yep.
Exactly. And so, like, you have to, I think it's important. Everybody's so concerned about getting scammed that they're sitting on their hands in fear of what might happen. And what I do want to say, intermittent between these stories that Chris and I are sharing, is that those you can't take situations that go to the margin that are the exception and make them like the generic way you
Normal.
should
Yeah.
handle situations. Like when you do that, you're almost certainly going to lose a lot of money because you're not going to be confident enough to seek certain deals, and you're just going to bypass a lot of opportunities. That's the thing, really. Um, Now, there was another time, the very first Oculus device I ever bought, I actually um, I was just really not shrewd enough yet at meetups on the deals. And I tell the story a lot because this is actually where I discovered my method for reselling consoles and stuff. But the guy pulled up in a really, really dirty old station wagon. There's like burger wrappers and stuff strewn all across the dash of the car. It smelled, the whole car smelled like one giant cigarette. And the guy got out, and I bought an Oculus CV1 from him, and didn't test anything. Just like it looked clean to me, which it was in good shape, but I didn't even bother to smell it. I don't have a great sniffer, anyways, but I sent it to the customer. Guy immediately sends it back, says the earpiece fell off and it smells like a carton of cigarettes. So that's when I was like, all right, well, I got to make this thing smell good, and I got to figure out a way to get my money back. And that was where I learned to like be more thorough in my checks and my investigations. Um, I've never had a situation where I had like a mob of people like in front of me or anything like that. The second time I bought a phone, I did not check the front-facing camera, and the front-facing camera didn't even work. So when I bought that phone, I probably lost about $20 on it. And so you can hear most of my stories are me getting excited about the deal, and as Elvis said, fools rush in, right? And so
Yeah.
like I'm just going into the deal too hasty and impatient, so that I did not make sure that I was getting my money's worth. Of course, these people, um, the good thing is when you sell stuff like that, you can turn around and give them like a really bad review on Facebook Marketplace. So it's like 1 star, right? And hopefully that is a preventative measure to keep them from scamming or being dishonest with other people. The thing about that, and I think Chris, you feel this too, is like these experiences kind of wants to erode your trust in people. It wants to make you distrust people, but you can't take 3 or 4 bad apples and make it a reason to distrust everybody. Um,
True.
because I've also had interactions with people that were incredible and courteous and kind and just needed extra cash and were happy to do a deal and happy to sell me the item at the price that I wanted to get it at or even less. Um, and just grateful. And like, I think it's reselling will really though challenge your sense of trust in yourself and in
Yeah.
like humankind.
100%.
You're going to see the best
100%.
and the worst of people, um, but you can't use either situation to like make it a status quo for everybody.
That's real, man. Like, I think, while we're talking here, like with this specifically, it always reminds me of like the the ignorance debt that we're all paying all the
Right.
time. Like a lot of people, I don't, they don't realize what they're doing most of the time. Is like whenever you make mistakes like this, um, like you're really paying down your ignorance debt, and that's really what's happening here. Is like is that like if you don't you know if you don't pay down your ignorance debt, it's going to be difficult, right? And ignorance debt is basically just paying down or just learning the knowledge that um, that you should have learned the first time, basically, right? Like I'm trying to find this quote right now. I think it goes like, a dumb person doesn't learn from mistakes. A somewhat dumb person takes 3 times to make the mistakes to finally get it, like, I'll find it here in a minute, but it's very true, in terms of like how it is, and a really smart person learns from other people's mistakes, right?
Yeah.
You can make a lot of mistakes and still be successful. A lot of people don't think that that's the case, but it really is. Like, if you can learn from other people's mistakes, like what we're doing right here with you guys, like you'll be way better off, you know, in the long run anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you got any more crazy stories?
Just interesting ones of how, like, occasionally some people are like super willing to like, hey, instead of meeting people, like, I know my city quite well. I know my city really well, let's be honest. And there are sometimes I'll meet people at a residence because I know its location as opposed to at like a public place, if it's in a really nice neighborhood. I think if you don't know your city super well, or you don't know that part of your city, you got to be like really careful of how you proceed with that process. And then, let me think here. Yeah, most of my deals up to this point have all been like pretty easy going, with the exception of those first 2 years was a learning curve because, well, like with you, I learned from David Kay on how to resell like phones and applied that reselling of electronics to consoles, which is, if people don't know and you're listening to this, that's 90 to 95% of what I sell. However, like, it's like selling consoles is like really great, and I would say it's even less scammy than selling phones, in my opinion. Which, if you want to sell consoles, there's a course now called Console Kings, and you guys can, if you're connected to Chris or me, you can jump in Console Kings because we launched it a week ago.
On school.com, you guys can find it. SKOOL.com. You can find it there. Type in Console Kings, and you'll find it pretty easily.
Yep.
It's a great course. I've already started looking my way through it, and obviously Matt has taught me certain things. And Matt's the reason I started doing reach outs again, and now we have Aaron doing reach outs again. And
we're making money.
We got. I mean, it's, I'm always paying off my own ignorance debt, right? Like, some things that, you guys might have heard me say 3 years ago aren't the case anymore, and that's all a part of like life. And like, I guess in the past I got a little cocky because I started making more money and things like that. And now it's more like, I'm getting a lead. You guys want to listen in?
Let's go. Yeah, let's do a live lead. Let's go.
Bell Electronics, press any key to connect the call.
Hello, this is Chris with Bell Electronics. How can I help you?
Hey, Chris, it's John with Fujifilm camera.
Oh, hey, bud. What's up?
Hey, I was wondering, 2 questions. I have a little cheap pair of Skull Candy headphones I was going to bring with me. And then I was also wondering, would it be possible to meet up just a tiny bit earlier, because I know there's some pretty bad weather up there.
Sure, man. Can you do like 11:45?
Yeah, absolutely. That works perfect. I'm like 15, 20 minutes away, so that gives me time to put my socks on and I'll be on my way.
All right. My wife should be back here pretty soon, so whenever she gets back, I'll head out, and I'll try to be there by 11:45. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
No problem, dude. Talk soon. Sorry, that was a repeat customer, guys.
All good.
Not the best representation, but there's money to be made. But I think like a lot of people, we tell you guys these stories once again, and I'm just reiterating this because you learn more from repetition than you do new things, right? We all need to be reminded more than we need to be taught.
Yeah, that's true.
We want, and this is why you guys hear me repeat things and make the same YouTube videos over and over again in just different ways, is because I don't know which one's going to hit for you, but I know whenever I'm learning, I have to hear something in about 4 different ways for it to really hit for me. Like, a good example of this is reps, putting the reps in, right? So I've listened to many different podcasts on just putting in the work and They all say the same thing. Just do more, do more, do more, do more, right? And then I heard, Andy Frisella, and then I heard Alex Ramosi, and then I heard another guy. And they were all like, it's like working out. If you do more reps and you work out more, you're going to get bigger and stronger. And the same thing applies to the knowledge that you're learning and your business. Like the more you do of a thing, the better you're going to get. You're basically building those knowledge muscles up. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing is, guys, you can either, so to put this in like weightlifting and sports, because a lot of people were in sports in the younger days. If you were, let's just say you go into business full on, no knowledge, flipping electronics. Guys, imagine going into a sport without working out, without stretching, without doing any of the sort. And let's just say you I don't know, tear an ACL, right? Like, because you didn't do any of that beforehand. That would be the equivalent in business to losing like $2,000, right? Big, massive setback, right? You got to come back from it. And then, but like, let's say you did the preparation, you got the knowledge beforehand, you did all of this stuff, you curbed down the ignorance debt a lot, and then just took action. That changes the game a little bit, right? Because now you've got the stretching in. Now you've warmed up. Your muscles are good to go. They're not cold, right? You're not running in cold turkey. You're not doing anything like that, right? Like it's the same concept, right? If you warm up and you get the knowledge beforehand, you make less mistakes. Yeah. This is how it works. And like if you take the knowledge that we're giving you guys right now and not make the mistakes that we're talking about, because I've seen people who listen to me who still make just the same mistake over and over again. It's like they aren't learning, right?
Yep.
That's just my recommendation is like learn beforehand and then take action.
Yeah.
But also you also need to be taking action as you learn as well. Like that's another part of it is like, because let's say you learn something. I mean, let's take this back to a workout type of deal. Like, let's say you stretch and then you don't go do your run. I mean, okay, what was the stretch for, right? Was it just a stretch? Like, what was the point? It's like, okay, well, some of you guys are consuming knowledge and then not taking any action whatsoever.
Yep.
So, like, what's the point in actually learning, right? Like, what did it do for you? What was the benefit? Yep. You learned it, great, but it doesn't actually apply unless you actually use it.
Yep.
Like, a lot of us want to be, well, I learned this, and I learned this, and I went to college for 4 years, and I learned this, and okay, cool. What'd you do? What are you doing? What did it do for you? What are you doing now? Because some of you, a lot of people like to brag about how much knowledge they have, but like, what are you actually doing with it? I don't know how I got on that.
But I think what you're getting on is really important. Like I think about, I thought of two other situations. Guys, in between me and Chris, like we've had a lot of meetups with people, and I've talked to over 40,000 people on Facebook, or looked at over 40,000 items on Facebook. As far as like product goes, so it's challenging to remember. But to Chris's point, I think it's also important to remember, like, there was a time where all of us didn't know how to do something. And the thing I really like to think about is everybody seems to like learn how to drive. And when I was first learning how to drive, I took a turn in my parents' van at 35 miles an hour, hanging a hard left. My dad, I think he crapped a brick, and like he was freaking out, but I took almost like a 90-degree turn. It was like really, really swifty left turn, and he was like, whoa, I pretty much put him into the window. And I eventually learned how to drive the correct way. But I was thinking, like, how crazy is it that there are like hundreds of people you drive past on a day, maybe thousands. We're all in like 60, 75 mile per hour missiles hurling down the road, four-wheeled missiles, and everybody seems to be able to do this. Like, if the entirety of population can pretty much learn how to drive a vehicle, and to be behind something like that is a responsibility and a liability, like, then I'm pretty sure that you can probably learn to do anything like reselling. Like, so when you take situations that could seem scammy and you go, oh, right, well, people crashing cars. Oh, we can't drive cars, right? Um, I once told my dad I wanted to learn to fly a helicopter. Now, I haven't learned to do that yet, but he's like, son, people die in helicopters. I was like, Dad, people die in cars. He goes, good point, son. And that was my teenage win. That was like, at like 15 years old, I got one over on dad. But um, reselling isn't much different. If you can take a risk and you're willing to learn and challenge yourself, then honestly, like if you can get in enough reps to learn how to drive correctly, you can't tell any one of us. I won't hear it. It's like you just can't say, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I can't learn this. It's like, no. Everybody learns how to drive because they have to, right?
Yep.
If you're in a financial situation that's dire enough, you're going to learn this out of necessity. Um, well, what if you just went ahead and waited instead of waiting until like you're in the dire straits, like you just said, oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to challenge myself to do this now because at 15 I learned how to drive a car. Um, I'm pretty sure I can learn how to do this. So,
Well, everything's hard until it's not, right?
indeed, it's true. I've heard that before. Um,
The infamous Matt Shirley quote: "Everything is hard until it's not.
it's true.
Everything is difficult until it's not." Like you can just replace hard with all sorts of words, and I love that quote so much. And I always quote it back to you because it's like that really that and like it only takes like 20 hours to become proficient at
Yeah.
something. Like I always go back to those things because I think it reinvigorates the learning process for me. Like, so for example, if I'm learning how to do something specifically, so a really good example, I'm working on getting better at like doodling and mapping things out right now, like in like mind maps almost. So I'm drawing on my whiteboard a lot now. I'm doing a lot of things like that now because I'm trying to get better at those things because I realize that visual representations are better for people, right? And Matt, you see this a lot. Like you guys see my YouTube videos a lot. You see me drawing on my whiteboard all the time, and I'm getting better and better every single time. And the cool thing about that is like your brain will stack things on top of the things you're learning all the time.
mhm.
And the only way to get to that is by actually doing the first part. So it's very interesting
Yeah.
how things kind of like, it's almost like as you're walking down the road, like, and let's just say you like find a penny or you find a quarter on the road, right? Like it's almost like it just kind of builds you up your bank account, not much, but enough, like, and it's enough to just keep doing it. And it gets fun after a while because then the money just gets larger and larger as you go down the road. And that's just one way to like visualize it. And that's another thing I'm getting better at too. And this is like visualizing like stories to get a point across, right? It only takes about 20 hours of just proficient action to do that, right? And this is why, well, like one reason we have Recelerator is to help with that, is to number one, get your 20 hours distilled down into like 4 to 5, right? You guys could theoretically learn how to resell phones and electronics if you put 20 hours of concerted effort into YouTube, taking notes, and
Yeah.
doing stuff like that. But the biggest part that you're going to be missing from that entire experience is actual real world buying stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to have the circumstances and the stuff to back up the knowledge and to confirm the knowledge at all, right? Like I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is like once I learn something, I'll go in and I'll confirm that it works pretty quickly. That way my feedback loop is much faster. Now I've noticed a lot of people don't do this. I didn't realize that I was one of the people that just learns something, takes action immediately, and that's just how I run. And Matt, I think you're similar in this way. You learn something, you're like, okay, let me test it out. Let me do it right now. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest differences between most people is, are you an action taker or are you, Andy Frisella calls these people success zombies, right? They'll buy every course. They will attend every webinar, every session, a lot of you guys listening right now are probably success zombies. Like, do you think you're being successful right now because you're listening to this podcast? Just being real, right? Like, you're listening to this podcast, you're like, oh, yeah, I was successful today. I listened to Chris and Matt. It means nothing if you don't do anything with it. Like, it's the same as me and Matt just talking. And are we putting something in your brain that's helping you? It depends. It's all on you.
I took my action.
Hey, there we go. You know? I mean, so let's take that for example. I want to take that really quickly.
Yeah.
So Matt's, what was he? Your cousin? Your nephew?
My nephew. Yeah.
Your nephew. Okay. So your nephew knew that you had a certain skill set.
For sure.
On how to buy and flip. You have a reputation basically for being very good at what you do. Mm-hmm. He reached out to you and he was like, hey, can you sell my dirt bike? And in return, he gave you an Xbox One S that you sold for $210, right?
I did. Yep.
I'd say that's a pretty freaking good, that's a good payment, you know?
It is. It's fair.
What actually led up to that? How much knowledge did you have to acquire to actually be good and sell something for somebody else?
Yeah.
You know, like, how long did it take? How long would it have taken your nephew to sell it?
Yeah.
I
think that's a really fascinating question, and it's like it gets me on like a couple mental trails. Like, first of all, I think some of you guys might listen to this, and I hope you've listened this far. If you have, like, props to you. Okay, there's a there's a cupcake in your mailbox. But for those of you that do listen to us, there's nothing more frustrating than confusing consumption and absorption with action and taking real ground. We are so consumer driven within the U.S. Don't allow that to confuse you. To think that somehow you've been proactive today, when maybe you did absorb more stuff. But just because I consume more calories, because my body is gaming itself up to use those calories, doesn't mean that I've actually used them. And so, like, are you calorie rich? Are you sitting there, heavy with a lot of information because you've absorbed a lot? Has that found a traction point is my question. Like,
man, that is, your way of wording things just always amazes me. It's got to be the teacher in you. Keep going. I love it.
But, the dynamic between Chris and I is great because we get to provoke each other with these thoughts, and he says things that, get me going and vice versa. But, like, I think that is, that's the kind of stuff that, like, really compels me. Because I don't think, like, this right here, let me tell you the cost. Okay, this bike has been sitting out in my garage for 3 weeks. I've had over 1,400 clicks. I've talked to over 23 people. This is the 23rd person I've talked to get this sale. I've had 2 other people completely ghost me, said they were showing up to my house. I gave them my address. They did not come, okay? And they said they were going to buy it for $1,000. I sold this for $900. And I had to call him to actually negotiate the price down by an extra $100. And I had priced it down 3 separate times on Facebook Marketplace till I found the right buyer. And, like, there's a resilience there that has come from reps in the game, right? This is a good item. It's in great condition. It only had 150 miles on the engine. Somebody's going to want to buy this, but someone also needs to respect the value of it enough, or the person that's going to be competing with the price the most is me. And so those things come amplified over time. But I think a lot of you guys listening to this might think that you have to wait to start by becoming an expert. But you're not going to become an expert if you're waiting to start. You become an expert along the way. So you can't deceive yourself by confusing the destination with what is actually acquired in the journey. The person you're going to be becoming to make money that you want to make is caught up in the process. It's all about process.
I really like what you said there. Like, you become the expert by doing, right? Like, we're not teaching theory here, guys. Like, we're not like the professors in college that are just teaching theory out of a book. Like, have you guys ever noticed there's no real business owners that ever teach business classes in college? You guys ever notice that? Because they're out there actually
running their business.
Yeah, like, they're making way more money. And if they are, it's because they've already built a business, and the college is paying them an outrageous amount of money to come in and actually do it.
That's true.
Right? Because they could just be out making more money. Like, at the end of the day, like what Matt said, is you become. My wife just literally opened the door and threw packing tape.
Well, I was hoping it was a cinnamon
Reseller
roll,
life.
you know, whatever.
Reseller life. I got to pack up some packages, and I asked her to pick up some tape. And
Thanks, Taylor. Shouts out to
yeah,
Taylor.
like, throws them in. Oh, okay. So you become the expert by doing, right? Like that's how it works. And you have to put in enough reps to be, because, you know, Matt, you and I can probably tell who, like if we're watching somebody, we can tell if they put in the reps or not just by simply the way they talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, a guy that I love to listen to is Andy Frisella. And if you guys don't know who he is, he's the MF CEO. Like, he's a guy in the game, worth millions of dollars, probably a billionaire at this point. And he's still in the game. And he, you know, one thing I love about him is what he talks about. He talks about the dark side of entrepreneurship, which is what nobody else talks about. He talks about the crap, the bad stuff, the stuff that happens that you don't want to hear about. You know, all the other influencers on Instagram and everything, they tell you the highlight reel of being an entrepreneur, but they don't tell you the dark side. They don't tell you the bad stuff that happens along the way, which is what this podcast is meant to do on the reselling side of things. Like, we're telling you guys our worst stories about and our worst customers.
Yeah.
Like, this is stuff that's going to happen. You guys are going to have your own stories like this one day. And I hope you do. You know, I mean, just not to the extreme that, you know, I had to go through, but like, it makes you more of a figure to listen to, you know? And the crazy thing is like, you can accelerate the wins and the processes. You know, I talk about Navon a lot. He's one of our students who just did amazing in the program.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is because he's such an accelerated, well, Navon and Jackson and other people like that we have in our Recelerator program, we talk about them a lot simply because they knew what, like, they listened, they did what we said, and they had an accelerated path of learning. And so shout out to Jackson. He has his own YouTube channel. I was watching his video the other day, and he gave me and Matt kind of a shout out. And he was talking about how he doesn't only flip phones anymore. And the reason he doesn't even like the term phone flipper for himself anymore. And he, you know, I felt that a long time ago, and it's fun to see somebody else actually going through the same kind of path that I did. So he was like, I barely flip any phones anymore. Like, everything else that I flip is consoles, it's laptops, it's like, I can't even call myself a phone flipper anymore because there's so much more profit in everything else than there is for phones.
Yep.
And I love to hear that because it confirms what we say. Like, it just confirms it. And the crazy thing is, like, every path you go down, whether you decide to just go into phones, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to get really good at negotiating. You're going to have to get really good. I mean, you're going to have to get really good at a lot of those things regardless. But, like, every new stream of income that you unlock within the reselling business, and I talk about this a lot, the mini streams. And they might move to game consoles, and then they might move to MacBooks and iPads and smartwatches. Every single different item that you switch to, you're going to unlock another level of ignorance. Like, you're going to be ignorant to how to buy a MacBook the first time. You're going to be ignorant on how to buy an Oculus Quest. Good. Like, you don't know how to do it. Therefore, you have to learn. And the best way to learn is by literally meeting up with a customer, putting the freaking thing on, making sure it works, figure out how to use it, play with the thing a little bit, you know? That's how Matt learned. He was talking earlier about how he had never had a PS4. You know?
That's
you
true.
learn by doing.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a situation where a guy was going to sell me an Xbox One S when these were like, this was 2.5, probably 3 years ago. And he also said he had a TV, and it sounded like a really nice high-end TV. I don't really flip TVs. You can buy TVs now for next to nothing, which is ridiculous how much you can get a 65-inch TV for at Costco now. But the guy sent me a photo of the TV, and I noticed, like, I didn't pay attention to how he had his girlfriend positioned in the TV. But well, ultimately, like she was standing in a place where there was something had hit the TV, and upon impact, it had made these giant streaks on the TV that were just like really, really noticeable. So I got home, I plugged the TV in. The dude like gives me a line. He goes, "Hey, I'm sorry. Like we had done a deal before, and he had actually sold me a Super Nintendo with some games. So I thought, cool, we've got some established relational equity. But the second deal, he scammed me. I bought the TV. He said he forgot the Xbox. I was like, all right, well, we'd already done an honest deal, and we did. And so like when I bought the TV, I took it home, plugged it in. Half the TV was in good shape. The other half was like garbage. And I was like, bro, I am dumb. Um, and then, but I immediately had saved a couple links of guys that were also flipping electronics in case I ever needed to offload something locally. And I found a guy. No, I was at a traffic light. That's what I was. And I saw a guy with a sign on the back of his, he had decals on the back of his car. It said, I buy broken TVs. And I took a picture of it because I was like, if I could buy broken TVs on the cheap, I wondered this guy would pay a lot for them. Like if I could get Sony brand or Panasonic or something. Um, and I ended up getting that TV off my hands and I sold it to the guy and basically broke even on it. But I didn't lose money, even though I got scammed on that deal, which was fascinating to me, just because I had sort of this desire to keep building up this information and insight about my area and stuff. And so that was a lesson. Another time I did buy a PlayStation 3 from a lady and I didn't check the pins of the HDMI import or like port, and the teeth of the pins were like really looked like a Shih Tzu, man. They were all like geeked up. And so uh, sadly, I've gotten hosed a few times, but like Chris was saying, like what is that? That's just scratches on a Chevy. That's all that is. You know what? It means I got some
Yeah,
mileage.
dude.
I put some
I
work
think
in.
a lot of people need to just realize, like, yeah. I mean, I think what a lot of people, and we need to finish up here soon because I gotta go buy that thing. But
Word.
also, looks like I'm about to lose connection due to the storm. But I think what a lot of people need to realize, you're gonna lose money every now and then. Like, I think you guys just like, and I'm just gonna give you guys a dark side of flipping electronics. You're going to lose sometimes.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the game. That's how it works. Like, a lot of you guys are scared to lose. Stop being scared to lose. So there's a saying that I have. It's like, I'm gonna fail faster than everybody. And the reason I say that is because if I fail faster than everybody, I'm gonna learn faster than everybody. So
Yep.
fail
So
faster. Be okay with losing. That it's just money. Like, and I know a lot of you guys are emotionally attached to it. I realize that you probably need to pay your bills, but at the same time, has there ever really been a month where you didn't make it? You're still here. If you're watching this interview, you're still
it's true.
here, so you must be making something.
It's a really good
You
point.
know?
And I think it's
Yeah.
funny because when you reach that pressure point, when you reach that choke point where your emotions and your inexperience and the challenges of what's new all meet in the same place, you know what's going to happen? You're going to find out what you're made of. Like that situation is going to press you, and if you have any demons, they're probably going to come to the surface. What I mean is, if there's anything there that looks like weakness or immaturity in who you are as a person, you're going to challenge that, and it's going to cause you to grow. Like you're not going to have any other choice but to advance through that situation. You're going to have to grow, and that's how you learn. And I think that's one thing that we forget when we age up, right? Because we don't. I don't say we necessarily all grow up, but we age up. And that immaturity, what is that? That's growing up, and you still need that when you're an adult. Like you still need to learn what it's like to mature in ways that you maybe haven't challenged yourself. Um, I'm going to share with you guys real quick a win that just came in from one of my students, who's pretty new to the reselling game. Um, we were looking for a deal on Facebook Marketplace, and I found a PlayStation VR headset for her on the cheap. The guy originally had marked it for 130 bucks. He reduced it to 80. She offered him 50 and bought it for 70. And she's never really done anything like this before, never really flipped anything. But I'm so delighted that I have this student who's sharing her story within Console Kings or Queens in this case to challenge herself and put herself out there, because if you don't, no risk, no reward. You got to risk it for the biscuit. Use whatever platitude you need, but I would rather risk losing a little bit of money in favor of making a lot than sit on my hands in fear and make no money at all. And if you can get down with that, then you at least have enough boldness and courage to start. And so,
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to end there, guys. I got to go buy a camera and, make about $80 in profit. So, but yeah, guys, thanks for coming to another episode of the Smart Flip. If you guys are looking for tailored help with flipping phones and electronics, obviously you can reach out to me. Feel free to do so, or you can apply wherever I have the application. Could be in the description or something. For Recelerator, if you guys want to take a tailored approach, get direct help, mentorship, and scale up to 5 to 10K a month in profit. So we help people do. We've been doing it for a while now. And also, Console Kings is available now. It's $97 a month. So you guys can check that out on school.com. I will add that to my YouTube description as well, so you guys can check it out. I forgot to do that. So you guys can check that out if you guys want to learn how to flip game consoles and make money doing it. I mean, let's be real. You flip 1 to 2 consoles a month, it pays for itself. So
it really
pretty
does.
solid.
It's pretty simple, y'all.
Yeah. And Matt does a great job explaining everything too. So with that being said, guys, this has been another episode of the Smart Flip. We will see you guys next week. Later.